The expensive designer watch on Zachary Valenti's wrist ticked relentlessly as he pored over spreadsheets late into the night, unaware that Zara Wilson had noticed the dark circles forming under his eyes. From her small cubicle outside his executive office, she could see him through the glass wall, hunched over his desk, tie loosened, running his hands through his dark hair in frustration. Zara had been working as an executive assistant at Valenti Enterprises for just over 8 months. Though her position kept her busy managing schedules and organizing meetings, she couldn't help but worry about her boss's health. Zachary Valenti had built his tech company from nothing, turning it into a billion-dollar empire before his 35th birthday. But the success had come at a cost, one that was becoming increasingly visible in the tension lines on his face. Tonight was the 3rd consecutive evening he'd stayed past 10. Zara glanced at her computer clock. 10:47 p.m. Most of the office had emptied hours ago, the 60-story building in downtown Manhattan now, quiet except for the occasional security guard making rounds. She should have left too. Her workday had technically ended at 6, but something kept her at her desk, a sense of loyalty, perhaps, or something deeper she wasn't ready to acknowledge. With a sigh, she stood up and walked to the break room, preparing a fresh cup of coffee the way she knew he liked it, black with just a hint of sugar. She hesitated before knocking on his door, wondering if her concern was crossing a professional boundary. "Come in," his deep voice called out. Zara pushed the door open with her shoulder, balancing the coffee mug carefully. "I thought you might need this, Mr. Valenti." Zachary looked up, surprise flashing across his face. "You're still here? It's almost 11. "So are you," she replied, setting the mug on his desk, careful to avoid the stacks of papers. He smiled, a rare sight that transformed his usually serious face. "Touché, Ms. Wilson." He reached for the coffee, his fingers brushing against hers momentarily. "Thank you." "The Harrison proposal?" she asked, nodding toward his computer screen. "Yes. The numbers aren't adding up and we're presenting tomorrow." He sighed, rolling his shoulders to release the tension. "There's something missing, but I can't figure out what." Zara hesitated. She wasn't an analyst or strategist, just an assistant who happened to have a degree in business administration that she'd never fully put to use. But she'd been following the Harrison deal closely, organizing all the meetings and handling the documentation. "May I?" she asked tentatively, gesturing toward the screen. Zachary looked surprised but nodded, turning the monitor slightly so she could see. Zara leaned in, careful not to get too close to him despite the faint scent of his expensive cologne drawing her in. "Have you considered that they might be undervaluing their R&D department? Their patent applications increased 30% last quarter, but that's not reflected in their valuation." Zachary stared at her, then back at the screen. "How did you know that?" She felt her cheeks warm under his intense gaze. "I process all the research reports. Sometimes I read them during lunch." "During lunch," he repeated slowly, then suddenly laughed, a genuine sound that made Zara's heart skip a beat. "While most people are watching cat videos, you're reading market analysis." Zara shrugged, feeling self-conscious. "I find it interesting." Zachary studied her for a moment, as if seeing her for the first time. "You might be onto something." He turned back to his computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Can you stay a bit longer? I could use another perspective?" "Of course," she said, pulling up a chair. What was supposed to be a quick review turned into a 2-hour deep dive into the Harrison Company's financials. Zara found herself pointing out discrepancies and suggesting alternative approaches, her natural shyness fading as she became absorbed in the work. Zachary listened intently, challenging her ideas, but respecting her insights in a way no one ever had before. By the time they finished, it was past midnight, and they'd completely restructured the proposal. "This is excellent work," Zachary said, saving the final document. "I'm impressed, Ms. Wilson." "Zara," she said impulsively. "You can call me Zara when we're working late like this." He smiled, and something in his expression made her pulse quicken. "Then you should call me Zachary." "It's late," she said, suddenly aware of how alone they were in the massive building. "We should probably go home and get some rest before tomorrow's meeting." Zachary nodded, shutting down his computer. "Let me drive you home. It's too late for the subway." "Oh, you don't need to." "I insist," he said firmly. "Consider it a small thank you for saving the Harrison deal." 20 minutes later, Zara found herself in the passenger seat of Zachary's sleek black Aston Martin, feeling entirely out of place amid the luxury. They drove in comfortable silence through the late-night streets of Manhattan, the city lights casting a glow on Zachary's profile. "We're in Brooklyn," he asked as they crossed the bridge. "Park Slope on 7th Avenue, she directed him, wondering what he would think of her modest neighborhood after living in his penthouse on the Upper East Side. When they pulled up to her apartment building, Zara felt strangely reluctant to leave the warm cocoon of his car. "Thank you for the ride." "Thank you for the help," he countered. "You have a good mind for business, Zara. You should be doing more than managing my calendar." She smiled, touched by his words. "Good night, Zachary." "Good night," he replied, waiting until she was safely inside the building before driving away. As Zara climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment, she tried to ignore the fluttering sensation in her stomach. Zachary Valenti was her boss, a billionaire CEO with a world of opportunities at his fingertips. She was just Zara Wilson, the quiet assistant who blended into the background. Tonight had been an anomaly, she told herself. Tomorrow things would return to normal. But as she fell asleep that night, she couldn't help but replay the moment his fingers had touched hers, or the way his eyes had lit up when she'd offered her insights. For the first time since taking the job, Zara wondered if there might be more to her role at Valenti Enterprises, and perhaps more to her relationship with its enigmatic CEO. The next morning, Zara arrived at the office earlier than usual, determined to maintain her professional demeanor, despite the lingering memory of Zachary's smile from the night before. She busied herself preparing for the Harrison meeting, double-checking that all materials were organized and that coffee and refreshments would be ready. At precisely 8:30 a.m., Zachary emerged from the elevator, looking refreshed despite their late night. His charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, emphasizing his broad shoulders and athletic build, the result of his disciplined morning workouts, which Zara knew were blocked off in his schedule every day at 5:30 a.m. "Good morning," he said, stopping at her desk instead of heading straight to his office as he usually did. "How are you feeling after our late night?" "Fine, thank you," she replied, trying to ignore how her heart raced at his attention. "Everything's ready for the Harrison meeting at 10. "Perfect." He hesitated, then added, "I reviewed our work again this morning. Your insights were invaluable, Zara. I've added your name to the presentation credits." She blinked in surprise. "That's not necessary." "It is," he interrupted firmly. "I don't believe in taking credit for other people's contributions." Before she could respond, his phone rang, and he excused himself to take the call in his office. Zara sat back in her chair, a mixture of pride and confusion swirling within her. In the 8 months she'd worked for him, Zachary had always been fair and professional, but never particularly warm or personal. This new attention felt different. The Harrison meeting went exceptionally well. Zara sat quietly at the corner of the conference table, taking notes while Zachary presented their proposal. When he mentioned her contribution to the analysis, nodding in her direction as the room full of executives turned to look at her, she felt her cheeks burn. Ms. Wilson identified a critical oversight in the initial valuation, Zachary explained. Her analysis of the R&D potential proved crucial to our revised approach. Marcus Harrison, the silver-haired CEO of Harrison Technologies, looked impressed. "Well done, young lady. It's refreshing to see a company where good ideas are valued regardless of job title." After the meeting concluded with handshakes and promises to finalize the deal within the week, Zachary caught up with Zara in the hallway. "You looked uncomfortable when I mentioned your contribution," he observed. Zara adjusted the stack of folders in her arms. "I'm not used to being in the spotlight." "You should get used to it," he said, his voice low and sincere. "Talent like yours deserves recognition." His words stayed with her throughout the day, warming her from within even as she tried to dismiss them as simple professional courtesy. That afternoon, as Zara was organizing Zachary's schedule for the upcoming week, his sister Camilla Valenti arrived unexpectedly. Tall, stylish, and intimidatingly confident, Camilla was the only person who entered Zachary's office without an appointment. "Zach, cancel whatever boring dinner you have planned for tonight," Camilla announced loudly enough for Zara to hear. "I've got 2 tickets to the charity gala at the Met, and you're my +1. Zara heard Zachary groan. "Cam, I've got work to do." "You always have work to do," his sister countered, "but Mom's on the board and she can't attend. If neither of us show up, she'll give us both that disappointed look." "The one that makes you feel like you've personally let down the entire family legacy?" Zachary asked dryly. "Exactly that one," Camilla laughed. "Besides, Emily Chen will be there." Zara tried not to eavesdrop, but at the mention of Emily Chen, the beautiful heiress to Chen Pharmaceuticals who had been linked romantically to Zachary in several tabloids, she found herself straining to hear his response. "Not interested," Zachary said firmly. "Still hung up on Rachel?" Camilla asked, referring to his ex-fiancée who had broken off their engagement nearly 2 years ago. "No," Zachary replied. "I just don't need you playing matchmaker." Zara busied herself with her computer when Camilla emerged from his office, stopping at her desk with a friendly smile. "You must be Zara," she said. "My brother mentioned you were instrumental in saving the Harrison deal." "I just offered a different perspective," Zara replied modestly. Camilla studied her with curious eyes. Well, since you seem to have some influence, perhaps you could convince my workaholic brother to attend this gala tonight. It's for a good cause, and he needs to socialize with humans occasionally." Zara smiled politely. "I'm afraid Mr. Valenti makes his own decisions." "True," Camilla sighed dramatically, "but he respects your opinion, apparently. That's rare." She glanced back at her brother's office. "Think about it. A little nudge might help pry him away from that desk." After Camilla left, Zachary emerged from his office looking irritated. "Sorry about my sister. She can be persistent." "She seems to care about you," Zara observed. "She thinks I work too much," he said, leaning against the edge of Zara's desk, something he'd never done before yesterday. The casual posture made him seem more approachable, less like the intimidating CEO the business world knew. "Do you?" she asked before she could stop herself. Zachary looked surprised by her candor. "Probably," he admitted, "but this company doesn't run itself." Zara glanced at his calendar on her screen. "You don't have any meetings after 6 today. The gala might be a nice change of pace." He raised an eyebrow. "Et tu, Zara?" "Just an observation," she said with a small smile. "Besides, your mother's philanthropic work is important. Valenti Foundation's literacy program has helped thousands of children." "You've researched my family's foundation?" he asked. Zara shrugged. "I like to be thorough." Zachary studied her for a moment. "Fine, you and Camilla win. I'll go to the gala." He straightened up from her desk. "But if I'm suffering through an evening of small talk with New York's elite, I think you should suffer with me." Zara's eyes widened. "What?" "Come to the gala," he said. "Consider it part of your job. You can help me identify potential business connections and rescue me from boring conversations." I don't have anything to wear to something like that," she stammered, thinking of the modest wardrobe in her Brooklyn apartment. Zachary waved dismissively. "Camilla can help with that. She lives for this sort of thing." He was already pulling out his phone. "I'll tell her you'll be joining us." Before Zara could protest further, he was back in his office making the call, leaving her stunned and slightly panicked at the prospect of attending one of New York's most exclusive social events with her boss, no less. 3 hours later, Zara found herself in Camilla Valenti's luxurious Upper West Side apartment, surrounded by designer gowns that probably cost more than her annual salary. "This one," Camilla decided, pulling out a midnight blue gown with delicate beading across the bodice. "With your coloring, it'll be stunning." "It's beautiful," Zara agreed, touching the silky fabric reverently. "But I couldn't possibly." "It's just a loan," Camilla assured her. "And besides, my brother asked me to make sure you were appropriately dressed. When Zachary asks for something, which is rare, I make it happen." Zara relented, allowing Camilla to help her into the gown, which fit remarkably well with just a few strategically placed pins. As Camilla's personal hairstylist arranged Zara's long chestnut hair into an elegant updo, she couldn't help but ask the question that had been bothering her all afternoon. "Why did your brother really invite me tonight?" Camilla met her eyes in the mirror. "In the 2 years since Rachel left, I've never seen him mention any woman's work contributions, let alone insist they accompany him to an event." She applied a touch of lipstick to Zara's mouth. "Whatever you did, it made an impression." By the time Zachary arrived to escort them, Zara hardly recognized herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked sophisticated and elegant, someone who belonged in Zachary Valenti's world, if only for one night. Zachary's reaction when she emerged from the bedroom confirmed the transformation. He stood motionless in Camilla's living room, his eyes widening slightly as they traveled from her face to the way the gown hugged her curves before flowing gracefully to the floor. "You look," he began, then cleared his throat. "You look very nice, Zara." "Nice?" Camilla scoffed. "She looks gorgeous, and you know it. Now let's go before we're unfashionably late instead of fashionably late." The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed for the gala, its grand entrance hall illuminated with thousands of twinkling lights. As they walked up the famous steps, photographers called out to Zachary, their cameras flashing. He placed a gentle hand on Zara's lower back, guiding her past them and into the museum. "Sorry about that," he murmured close to her ear, his breath warm against her skin. "Comes with the territory." Inside, the gala was in full swing. New York's wealthiest and most influential people mingled among priceless artworks. Champagne flowing freely as a string quartet played softly in the background. "Zachary Valenti," a voice called out. They turned to see Gregory Patterson, the CEO of a rival tech company, approaching with a predatory smile. "I didn't expect to see you at a social event. Don't you usually send a donation and stay chained to your desk?" "Gregory," Zachary nodded coolly. "Sometimes even I make exceptions for worthy causes." Gregory's gaze shifted to Zara. "And who is your lovely companion?" "This is Zara Wilson, a valued member of my executive team," Zachary replied, his hand still resting protectively on her back. Zara nearly choked on her champagne at being described as part of the executive team rather than as his assistant, but she maintained her composure, extending her hand to Gregory. "Pleased to meet you," she said politely. "The pleasure is all mine," Gregory replied, holding her hand a moment too long. "If you ever decide Valenti Enterprises isn't fully appreciating your value, Patterson Tech is always looking for talent." "I'm quite happy where I am," Zara replied, feeling Zachary's hand press slightly firmer against her back. As the evening progressed, Zara was introduced to countless business leaders, philanthropists, and socialites. To her surprise, she found herself enjoying the conversations, especially when they turned to business matters. Years of reading industry news and company reports during her lunch breaks had given her a wealth of knowledge that impressed many of Zachary's associates. "Your assistant is remarkably well informed," commented Elaine Winters, a venture capitalist who had been discussing renewable energy investments with them. "She's far more than an assistant," Zachary replied, giving Zara a look that made her heart race. "She just hasn't realized it yet." Later, as a band replaced the string quartet and guests began dancing, Zachary led Zara onto the floor, his hand warm against hers. "You didn't have to defend me to everyone," she said as they moved together to the music, his hand resting lightly on her waist. "I am your assistant, after all." "For now," he replied cryptically. Zara looked up at him confused. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he pulled her slightly closer as they danced. "You've surprised me, Zara Wilson." "How so?" "You're brilliant but unassuming, observant but quiet. You've been working for me for 8 months, and I'm only now realizing how much you notice." His eyes, a deep amber in the soft lighting, held hers. "What else have you observed about me that I don't know?" Zara swallowed, suddenly aware of how close they were, how his expensive cologne enveloped her senses, how right it felt to be in his arms despite all the reasons it shouldn't. "I've noticed you work too hard," she said softly. that you care deeply about your company but pretend decisions are just about numbers when they're often about people, that you have a terrible sweet tooth but try to hide it, that when you're truly focused on something, you get this little crease between your eyebrows. Without thinking, she raised her hand to gently touch the spot, then quickly lowered it. Embarrassed by her boldness, Zachary looked stunned, his steps faltering slightly before he recovered. "You've been watching me closely. It's my job to anticipate your needs," she said, looking away. "Is that all it is?" he asked, his voice low. Before she could answer, they were interrupted by Camilla, who swept in with an apologetic smile. "Sorry to break up this moment," she said, not looking sorry at all, "but Mom's on video call from Paris and insists on saying hello to her favorite son." Zachary sighed, reluctantly stepping back from Zara. "Duty calls. Will you be all right for a few minutes?" "Of course," Zara assured him, suddenly feeling cold without his touch. As he walked away with Camilla, Zara made her way to the edge of the dance floor, her mind reeling from their conversation. Had she revealed too much? Had she imagined the intensity in his gaze? "You've made quite an impression on Zachary," a female voice observed. Zara turned to find a striking woman in her 50s, watching her with calculating eyes. "I'm Diana Blackwell, an old friend of the Valenti family." "Zara Wilson," she replied, shaking the woman's offered hand. "I know who you are," Diana smiled thinly. "Zachary's assistant, who suddenly seems to be much more. It's an interesting career trajectory." Zara stiffened at the implication. "Mr. Valenti values hard work and intelligence." "I'm sure he values many things about you," Diana replied. "Just a friendly warning, Zachary may seem interested now, but men like him don't marry their assistants, dear. They may play with them for a while, but ultimately, they choose women from their own world. Someone like Emily Chen, perhaps. Their families have been pushing for that match for years." Before Zara could respond, Zachary returned, his expression darkening when he saw who she was speaking with. "Diana," he said coldly. "I see you're making new acquaintances." "Just getting to know your lovely assistant," Diana smiled. "She's charming. Rachel would be surprised to see your taste has evolved." "I think the Pattersons were looking for you by the South Gallery," Zachary said dismissively. "Something about a donation to your foundation." After Diana had glided away, Zachary turned to Zara, concern etching his features. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing important," Zara lied, forcing a smile. "Just small talk." Zachary looked unconvinced but didn't press the issue. "Would you like to leave? I've fulfilled my social obligation, and honestly, I'd rather be anywhere but here right now." Relief washed over her. "Yes, please." Instead of returning to Camilla's apartment, Zachary directed his driver to a small, exclusive restaurant overlooking the Hudson River. "I thought you might be hungry," he explained as they were led to a private table with a spectacular view of the water. Gala food is always more decorative than substantial. Over a late dinner of perfectly prepared seafood and a bottle of wine worth more than Zara's weekly salary, their conversation flowed easily, moving from business to more personal topics. Zachary told her about growing up with the pressure of the Valenti name, while Zara shared stories of her childhood in a small Connecticut town, raised by a single mother who had sacrificed everything for her education. "Is that why you work so hard?" he asked. "To honor her sacrifices?" Zara nodded, twirling her wineglass thoughtfully. "Partly, but also because I love learning, understanding how things work. Business fascinates me, the strategies, the human elements, the way decisions ripple outward. Why didn't you pursue it more directly? With your mind, you could be running your own division instead of managing someone else's schedule." She hesitated, then admitted, "Confidence, I guess. After college, I took what felt like a safe path. Executive assistant positions let me observe business operations up close without having to put myself forward." "You've been hiding in plain sight," Zachary observed, "absorbing everything but never showing how much you know." "Until last night," she said with a small smile. "Until last night," he agreed, his eyes warm as they held hers across the table. "I'm glad you finally let me see you, Zara." The intimacy of his words sent a shiver through her. Diana Blackwell's warning echoed in her mind, but in that moment, with Zachary looking at her like she was the only person in the world, it was hard to remember why she should be cautious. When he drove her home later that night, the air between them was charged with unspoken possibilities. Outside her apartment building, Zachary insisted on walking her to her door despite her protests. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said as they stood in the dimly lit hallway outside her apartment. "You made what would have been an unbearable evening into something I'll remember for a long time." "I had a wonderful time," she admitted. "Though I'm not sure how I'll go back to being just your assistant on Monday morning." Zachary stepped closer, his expression serious. "Is that what you want? To remain my assistant?" Her heart pounded as she looked up at him. "What other option is there?" Instead of answering, he reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek, warm and gentle. "I think we both know there could be many options, Zara," he said softly. "But right now, I just want to know if I can see you again, not as your boss, but as a man who finds himself thinking about you far more than he should." Zara's breath caught in her throat. This was everything she'd secretly dreamed of, and everything she feared crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. "Zachary," she whispered, "we work together. You're my boss. There are a dozen reasons why this is complicated." "I know," he acknowledged, "and if you tell me to back off, I will. Nothing will change at work. I respect you too much to let my feelings affect your career." His honesty touched her deeply. "I need to think," she finally said. "This is all happening so fast." Zachary nodded, stepping back respectfully. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you decide." He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss against her knuckles before turning to leave. At the end of the hallway, he looked back. "Good night, Zara." "Good night," she whispered, watching him disappear down the stairs before entering her apartment and closing the door, leaning against it as her mind raced with possibilities and fears. The weekend passed in a blur of conflicting emotions for Zara. She alternated between replaying every moment with Zachary, his touch, his words, the way he looked at her when she spoke, and reminding herself of the reality of their situation. He was Zachary Valenti, billionaire CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. She was his assistant, barely making enough to afford her one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. By Monday morning, she still hadn't reached a decision about how to respond to his interest. Walking into Valenti Enterprises, she braced herself for awkwardness, unsure how they would navigate their professional relationship after the intimacy they had shared. To her surprise, Zachary treated her with the same professional courtesy as always, though his eyes lingered on hers a moment longer when he greeted her. There was no mention of the gala or their conversation outside her apartment, just a normal Monday morning discussing his schedule and upcoming meetings. As the day progressed, Zara began to wonder if she had imagined the connection between them. Had he already reconsidered? Was Diana Blackwell right after all? Her doubts were put to rest when, just before lunch, Zachary emerged from his office and placed a small box on her desk. "What's this?" she asked, looking up at him. "Open it," he encouraged, his expression giving nothing away. Inside, she found a beautiful leather-bound notebook with her initials embossed in gold. A note tucked inside read, "For all your observations and insights, they deserve to be recorded. ZV." "Thank you," she said softly, touched by the thoughtful gift. "It's perfect." "Have dinner with me tonight," he said quietly, making sure no one else in the office could hear. "Just dinner, Zara. No pressure, no expectations." She hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Okay." His smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "I'll pick you up at 7. That evening, Zara spent an hour trying to decide what to wear, finally settling on a simple navy dress that was professional enough to look like a business dinner if anyone saw them, but elegant enough to be appropriate for a date. Zachary arrived precisely at 7, dressed in the same suit he'd worn to work but with a different tie. He brought her a single white rose, understated yet meaningful. No fancy restaurant tonight, he told her as they walked to his car. I thought we might go somewhere more private, where we can talk freely. Private turned out to be his penthouse apartment, where his personal chef had prepared dinner for them. Under different circumstances, Zara might have been uncomfortable with such an intimate setting, but Zachary was careful to keep everything respectful, maintaining a comfortable distance as he gave her a tour of his home. The apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city, modern furnishings that managed to look both expensive and comfortable. But what surprised Zara most was his library, an entire room lined with books ranging from classical literature to business theory to science fiction. You didn't strike me as an avid reader, she commented, running her fingers along the spines. Another thing you've observed incorrectly, he teased gently. I read every night before bed. It's the only way I can shut off my brain. Over dinner, a delicious but unpretentious meal of roasted chicken and vegetables, they talked about everything except work. Zachary told her about his childhood dream of becoming an astronaut, while Zara shared her secret passion for painting, a hobby she rarely had time for anymore. I'd like to see your work sometime, he said sincerely. It's nothing special, she demurred, just landscapes mostly. I doubt anything you do is nothing special, he replied, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her blush. After dinner, they moved to his balcony, sipping coffee as they watched the city lights twinkle below. The night air was cool, giving Zara the perfect excuse to accept when Zachary offered his jacket, wrapping it around her shoulders with gentle hands that lingered a moment too long. Can I ask you something personal? She ventured, emboldened by the intimate setting. Anything. What happened with your fiancée? Rachel, right? Camilla mentioned her. Zachary was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the skyline. Rachel decided the life I could offer wasn't what she wanted after all. She said I was too dedicated to my work, that I'd never be able to give her the attention she deserved. Was she right? Zara asked softly. He turned to look at her, his expression vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Partly. I was building the company, working 18-hour days, but I think the real issue was that she wanted the benefits of being with Zachary Valenti without understanding what drives me. She saw the work as a competitor for my attention rather than an essential part of who I am. Zara nodded, understanding perfectly. You needed someone who saw your dedication as a strength, not a flaw. Exactly, he said, looking relieved that she understood. Someone who doesn't ask me to be less ambitious, just more balanced. Is that what you see in me? She asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Zachary moved closer, his hand finding hers on the railing. What I see in you, Zara, is someone who understands me in ways no one else has bothered to. You notice everything not just about work, but about me. You bring me coffee when I'm stressed. You know when I need space and when I need someone to challenge me. You're brilliant and kind and far too modest about your abilities. His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Zachary. I know there are complications, he continued. I'm your boss. There's a power imbalance we can't ignore. People will talk, make assumptions about how you've advanced, but I can't pretend I don't feel this connection between us. Zara took a deep breath. I feel it too, she admitted. But I'm scared. Not just of what others might think, but of being hurt. Men like you don't usually end up with women like me. Men like me? He questioned. Billionaires, she clarified. Diana Blackwell made it clear at the gala that you're expected to marry someone like Emily Chen, not your assistant from Connecticut. Anger flashed across Zachary's face. Diana has no right to speak for me or my intentions, and I've never cared about meeting others' expectations. If I did, I wouldn't have dropped out of business school to start a tech company against my father's wishes. He gently turned her to face him fully. I can't promise where this will lead, Zara, but I can promise that my interest in you has nothing to do with convenience or passing time. You've awakened something in me that I thought was gone, the ability to see beyond spreadsheets and strategies to what really matters. Zara looked up at him, searching his eyes for any sign of deception, but finding only sincerity. So what do we do? We take it slow, he suggested. Get to know each other outside the office, and at work, we remain professional. No special treatment, no public displays that might compromise your standing with colleagues. And my job, she asked. I can't continue as your assistant if we're whatever this is becoming. Zachary nodded thoughtfully. I've been thinking about that. The Harrison deal showed me you're wasted in your current position. How would you feel about moving to the strategy department? It would be a promotion, a significant raise, and you'd report to Marcus Donovan, not me. You'd create a position for me? She asked skeptically. No, I'd put you in a position you've already proven you deserve, he corrected. The move would have made sense even if there was nothing personal between us. But now, it also solves our professional dilemma. It was a sensible solution, Zara had to admit, and the thought of doing work that challenged her intellectually was appealing. Still, she hesitated. People will still talk, she pointed out. They'll say I slept my way into the position. Some might, he acknowledged, but your work will speak for itself, just as it did with the Harrison deal. And frankly, Zara, at some point you have to decide if you're going to live your life worrying about what others think, or if you're going to pursue what makes you happy. He was right, she realized. She'd spent too much of her life playing it safe, staying in the background, afraid to reach for what she really wanted. Okay, she said finally, let's try this, slowly, and I'll consider the position in strategy. Zachary's smile was radiant. That's all I ask. Tentatively, he raised his hand to cup her cheek. May I kiss you, Zara? I've been wanting to since the moment you walked into my office with that coffee the other night. Her heart thundering in her chest, Zara nodded, closing her eyes as he leaned down to press his lips gently against hers. The kiss was soft, questioning at first, then deeper as she responded, her hands moving to his chest, feeling his heart beating as rapidly as her own. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Zachary rested his forehead against hers. Worth the wait, he murmured. Zara couldn't help but smile. A newfound confidence blooming within her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, in this moment, everything felt absolutely right. The following weeks brought significant changes to Zara's life. True to his word, Zachary arranged for her transfer to the strategy department, where she thrived under Marcus Donovan's mentorship. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase and a corner office with actual windows, a far cry from her desk outside Zachary's door. As predicted, the office gossip machine went into overdrive. Some colleagues were supportive, having seen her intelligence and work ethic firsthand. Others were less kind, whispering that she must have provided special services to earn such a rapid advancement. Zara did her best to ignore the rumors, focusing instead on proving herself through her work. Her analysis of market trends and competitive strategies quickly earned her respect among the senior executives, many of whom began requesting her specifically for their projects. Meanwhile, her relationship with Zachary evolved carefully, both of them conscious of maintaining professional boundaries at work while exploring their deepening connection in private. They kept their dating low-key quiet dinners at out-of-the-way restaurants, weekends hiking in upstate New York, evenings at home cooking together and discussing everything from politics to philosophy. Zachary proved to be a thoughtful partner, attentive to her needs and genuinely interested in her thoughts. He encouraged her to resume painting, converting a spare bedroom in his penthouse into a studio where she could work when she visited. For her part, Zara helped him find better work-life balance, coaxing him away from his laptop to enjoy simple pleasures like Sunday morning brunches and afternoon walks in Central Park. 3 months into their relationship, they faced their first significant challenge when Valenti Enterprises' quarterly results fell short of market expectations. The company's stock dropped 15% in a single day, triggering panic among investors and a flurry of emergency board meetings. Zara watched from her new position as Zachary shouldered the pressure, working around the clock to stabilize the situation. Unlike before, when she could bring him coffee and offer quiet support, she now had to maintain a professional distance, observing his exhaustion from afar. After a particularly brutal board meeting where several members had questioned his leadership, Zara found Zachary alone in the executive conference room, staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline. "You shouldn't be here," he said without turning around. "People will talk." "Let them," she replied, closing the door behind her. "How are you holding up?" He turned to face her, the strain of the past week evident in the dark circles under his eyes and the tension in his shoulders. "I've been better." Zara moved closer, careful to keep a professional distance despite her desire to comfort him. The Asia-Pacific expansion was always going to be expensive in the short term. The board knows that. "They knew it when the stock was up," he said bitterly. "Now they're questioning every decision I've made in the past year." "Because they're scared," she pointed out. "Fear makes people forget strategy and focus on immediate relief." Zachary sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I can't afford to show weakness right now. The team needs to see confidence." "Being human isn't weakness, Zachary," she said gently. "Your team respects you, not just for your business acumen, but for your integrity. They'll follow you through this rough patch if you let them see that you trust them to help." He studied her for a long moment. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from watching a certain CEO," she replied with a small smile. "Even if he doesn't always follow his own best practices." That evening, Zachary called an all-hands meeting where, instead of projecting artificial confidence, he acknowledged the challenges facing the company and outlined a transparent plan for addressing them. He invited input from employees at all levels, creating task forces to tackle specific issues. The approach worked better than anyone expected. With the entire company rallying around shared goals, they identified inefficiencies and implemented solutions that had immediate positive impacts on their financial position. By the end of the quarter, the stock had recovered much of its lost value, and analyst reports were praising Valenti's innovative management style. "Your suggestion saved the company," Zachary told Zara one evening as they relaxed in his apartment, celebrating the turnaround. "If I'd continued trying to handle everything myself, we might not have recovered so quickly." "The ideas came from your team," she reminded him. "You just needed to give them the opportunity to contribute." He smiled, pulling her closer on the sofa. "You know what I've realized? Before you, I thought leadership meant having all the answers. You've shown me that sometimes it means asking the right questions and really listening to the responses." "That works in relationships too," she pointed out, nestling against his chest. "Speaking of relationships," he said, his tone becoming more serious, "we've been together for almost 4 months now, and I've been thinking about next steps." Zara's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of next steps?" "Well, you're spending most nights here anyway," he began carefully, "and your lease is up for renewal next month." "Are you asking me to move in with you?" she asked, sitting up to look at him. "Only if you want to," he hastened to add. "I know it's a big step and you value your independence. But I love having you here, Zara. The penthouse feels like a home when you're in it." The sincerity in his eyes melted any reservations she might have had. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd love to move in with you." His face lit up with a joy that made her heart swell. "Really?" "Really," she confirmed, laughing as he pulled her into a tight embrace, covering her face with kisses. "You've made me the happiest man in Manhattan," he declared, "maybe the entire Eastern Seaboard." "Just wait until you're helping me move all my boxes," she teased. 2 weeks later, as Zara unpacked the last of her modest possessions into Zachary's spacious closets, she marveled at how dramatically her life had changed in less than a year. From quiet assistant to strategy analyst, living with one of New York's most eligible bachelors, it was like something from a fairy tale. Yet their relationship felt remarkably normal in many ways. They bickered about mundane things like whose turn it was to load the dishwasher or what to watch on Netflix. Zachary was hopeless at laundry, but surprisingly skilled at cooking breakfast. Zara hogged the bathroom in the mornings but made up for it by brewing perfect coffee every day. Their professional lives remained carefully separated. At work, they maintained appropriate boundaries, addressing each other formally in meetings and avoiding situations that might suggest favoritism. Zara continued to impress her colleagues with her strategic insights, while Zachary led the company through its expansion with renewed energy and collaborative spirit. 6 months into their relationship, Valenti Enterprises held its annual charity gala, the same event where Zara had first accompanied Zachary as his assistant. This time, she attended openly as his partner, wearing a stunning red gown that Camilla had helped her select. "You look incredible," Zachary whispered as they entered the ballroom together, his hand resting possessively at her waist. "Every man in this room is envious of me right now." Zara smiled, more confident than she'd been at their first gala. "And many of the women still think I somehow tricked you into this relationship." "Let them think what they want," he replied, unconcerned. "We know the truth." As they made their way through the crowd, Zara noticed Diana Blackwell watching them with narrowed eyes. The woman approached as Zachary was pulled away by a board member, leaving Zara momentarily alone. "Well, well," Diana said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "You've certainly moved up in the world since we last spoke, Ms. Wilson." "It's nice to see you again, Mrs. Blackwell," Zara replied politely, refusing to be intimidated. "I must admit, I underestimated you," Diana continued. "I thought you'd be a brief diversion for Zachary, but here you are, 6 months later. How persistent." Zara met the older woman's gaze steadily. "I'm not with Zachary for his money or his status, Mrs. Blackwell. I'm with him because we understand and respect each other. Perhaps that's something you've yet to experience in your own relationships." Diana's eyes widened at the polite but pointed barb. Before she could respond, Zachary returned, placing a protective arm around Zara's waist. "Diana," he acknowledged coolly, "I see you're becoming reacquainted with Zara. I hope you're being as gracious as she is." "Your girlfriend was just demonstrating her spirit," Diana replied tightly. "You've chosen someone who isn't afraid to speak her mind. How refreshing." "It's one of the many things I love about her," Zachary said, the word love hanging in the air between them. It was the first time he had used it in reference to his feelings for Zara, and though he was saying it to Diana, his eyes were fixed on Zara's face, gauging her reaction. Zara felt warmth spread through her chest. They hadn't exchanged those words yet, though she had felt them growing stronger each day. Diana made a hasty exit, leaving them alone in their private moment. "Did you mean that?" Zara asked quietly, her heart racing. Zachary turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "I didn't plan to say it like this with Diana Blackwell as an audience, but yes. I love you, Zara. I've loved you for months, probably since that night you stayed late to help me with the Harrison proposal and showed me who you really are." Joy bubbled up inside her. "I love you too," she replied, the words feeling both monumental and completely natural. "I think I fell in love with you watching you work so hard for your company, caring so deeply about something you built." He smiled, touching his forehead to hers. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both of us admiring each other's work ethic." "Among other qualities," she amended, reaching up to kiss him softly, not caring who might be watching. Later that night, as they swayed together on the dance floor, Zara couldn't help but reflect on how different this gala felt from the first one. Then, she had been uncertain, out of place, worried about crossing professional boundaries. Now, secure in Zachary's love and her own worth, she belonged here not because of her relationship with him, but because she had earned her place through her own merits. "What are you thinking about?" Zachary asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "How much has changed since the last time we danced together," she replied. "It feels like a lifetime ago." "A better lifetime now," he said, pulling her closer. "With you." As their relationship deepened, Zachary and Zara faced the inevitable challenges that came with their positions. The business press continued to speculate about their relationship, some articles questioning whether Zara's rapid rise within Valenti Enterprises was truly based on merit. Online comments could be cruel, suggesting she was a gold digger or worse. Zara tried not to let the negativity affect her, focusing instead on her work and the reality of their relationship. But on particularly bad days, the doubts would creep in, making her question whether she could ever truly belong in Zachary's world. One evening, after a particularly vicious article appeared in a business blog questioning her qualifications and suggesting she had used her relationship with Zachary to bypass more deserving candidates for a recent project lead position, Zara retreated to her painting studio, seeking solace in her art. Zachary found her there hours later, still working on a turbulent seascape that reflected her emotional state. "That's new," he commented, studying the dark waves crashing against a rocky shore. "It's powerful." Zara set down her brush, wiping paint-stained hands on her apron. "Just working through some feelings." He moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "The article? You saw it?" "Marcus forwarded it to me," he sighed. "He's concerned about how it might affect team morale." Zara stiffened in his arms. "Does he think I'm unqualified too?" "No," Zachary said firmly, turning her to face him. "He's worried that you might pull back from leading projects because of the scrutiny. He values your contributions, Zara. We all do." She looked away, the insecurities she usually kept at bay rising to the surface. "Maybe we should have been more careful, kept our relationship private longer until I was more established." "And live in hiding?" he asked, gently tilting her chin up to meet his gaze. "That's not who either of us is. Besides, no matter when we went public, there would have been talk. That's the price of being with me, unfortunately." "I don't care about that for myself," she admitted. "I care about how it affects your company, your reputation." "My company is stronger with you in it," he said with conviction. "As for my reputation, anyone whose opinion I value knows I would never compromise Valenti Enterprises' standards for personal reasons." He led her to the small sofa in the corner of the studio, sitting beside her and taking her paint-smudged hands in his. "Zara, I've watched you work tirelessly these past months, putting in longer hours than anyone to prove yourself. Your quiet bravery in facing these challenges, the new position, our relationship, the public scrutiny only makes me love you more." His words warmed her heart, but the doubts lingered. "Sometimes I wonder if it would be easier for you if you were with someone like Emily Chen, someone from your world who wouldn't raise eyebrows." Zachary's expression grew serious. "Is that what you think? That I'm enduring some hardship by being with the woman I love?" He shook his head, a hint of frustration in his voice. "Emily Chen, or anyone like her, could never understand me the way you do. They've never had to work for anything, never faced real challenges. You're stronger than any of them, Zara." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I was going to wait for a more romantic moment, but maybe this is exactly the right time." Zara's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond ring. "I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment," he confessed. "But I realize now that with us it's not about perfect moments or grand gestures. It's about choosing each other every day, through articles and gossip and whatever else comes our way." He slid off the sofa onto one knee before her, still holding her paint-stained hands. "Zara Wilson, I fell in love with you watching you work with the same dedication and passion that I put into my company. I love your brilliant mind, your kind heart, your quiet strength. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Zara's eyes as joy replaced her earlier doubts. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Zachary, I'll marry you." His hands trembled slightly as he slipped the ring onto her finger, smiling at the incongruity of the elegant diamond against her paint-splattered skin. "It looks perfect," he said, before pulling her into a kiss that left them both breathless. Later, as they lay in bed together, Zara admired the way her ring caught the moonlight streaming through the windows. "We're really doing this," she marveled. "Having second thoughts?" he teased, though she could hear a hint of genuine concern. "Not about marrying you," she assured him. "Just thinking about what comes next. The wedding will be a media circus." "It doesn't have to be," he countered, propping himself up on one elbow to look at her. "We could elope. Fly to a beach somewhere and say our vows with just the waves as witnesses." The idea was tempting. "Your mother would never forgive us," Zara pointed out. "She'd understand," he said. "She eloped with my father. Actually, caused quite the scandal in 1985. Zara laughed, surprised. "I didn't know that." "They were supposed to have this enormous society wedding, Zachary explained. 300 guests, cathedral ceremony, the works. 2 weeks before, they ran off to Hawaii and got married on the beach. My grandparents nearly disowned them. What changed their minds? My birth, apparently, he grinned. Hard to stay mad when a grandchild enters the picture. Zara snuggled closer to him, thinking about their future. I want whatever will make us happiest, she decided. Big wedding, small wedding, elopement as long as we're together at the end of the day. I don't care about the rest. Zachary kissed her forehead. That's why I love you. You see what really matters. Their engagement announcement the following week created exactly the media frenzy they had anticipated. Business publications speculated about prenuptial agreements and what Zara's role would be in the company after marriage. Fashion magazines dissected her style choices and debated which designers might create her wedding gown. Tabloids dug into her background, publishing unflattering photos of her modest childhood home and interviewing distant relatives for any scandalous tidbits. Through it all, Zara maintained her composure, continuing to excel at work while she and Zachary began planning their future together. They decided on a small wedding with just family and close friends, held at Zachary's family estate in Connecticut. Camilla, who had become one of Zara's closest friends, threw herself into wedding planning with enthusiasm, handling vendors and details that would have overwhelmed Zara. You know, Camilla said one afternoon as they reviewed flower arrangements, I've never seen my brother this happy. Even when he was with Rachel, there was always something reserved about him. He works too hard, Zara said fondly. Always has. That's just it, Camilla replied thoughtfully. He still works just as hard, but it doesn't consume him anymore. He has perspective. That's your influence. The observation stayed with Zara, warming her heart. She had always admired Zachary's work ethic, his dedication to building something meaningful. To know that she had helped him find balance without sacrificing that drive meant everything. 2 months before their wedding, an unexpected opportunity arose that tested their newly established equilibrium. Marcus Donovan announced his retirement, opening up the position of Chief Strategy Officer, a role that would put someone on the executive leadership team, reporting directly to Zachary. Several senior directors were being considered for the promotion, including Zara, whose work on recent international expansions had been particularly impressive. The board, however, expressed concerns about promoting the CEO's fiancée to such a visible position. It's a conflict of interest, board member Richard Hayes argued during a closed-door meeting that Zachary later recounted to Zara. No matter how qualified she is, the perception will always be that she got the position because of your relationship. So we're going to pass over the most qualified candidate because of perception, Zachary had countered. That seems like poor business strategy to me. The debate raged for weeks, putting strain on both of them. Zachary was furious at the implication that he couldn't separate his personal and professional judgment, while Zara struggled with knowing her relationship was hindering her career advancement. Maybe I should look for opportunities outside Valenti Enterprises, she suggested one evening as they discussed the situation. I could prove myself elsewhere without your name attached to my success. Zachary looked stricken. Is that what you want? No, she admitted. I love working at Valenti. The projects challenge me, and I've built great relationships with the team. But I don't want to be the reason there's discord between you and the board. He took her hands, his expression serious. Zara, if you want to explore other options, I'll support you completely. But don't leave because you think it's what's best for me or the company. The board will come around eventually. Your work speaks for itself. After much reflection, Zara made a decision that surprised both of them. She asked to address the board directly, without Zachary present. Standing before the group of stern-faced executives, many of whom had known Zachary since childhood, Zara felt a momentary flutter of nervousness. But as she began to speak, her confidence grew. I understand your concerns about promoting me to CSO, she said candidly. The appearance of favoritism is a valid business concern. But I'd like to propose an alternative solution. She outlined a plan to create a new position, head of international strategy, that would utilize her skills without placing her directly on the executive leadership team. The role would focus specifically on Valenti's global expansion, reporting to the CSO rather than directly to Zachary. This allows me to continue contributing in an area where I've demonstrated success without creating the appearance of impropriety, she explained. It's a lateral move for me in terms of hierarchy, but it focuses my work in an area that is crucial for the company's future growth. The board members were impressed by her pragmatism and willingness to put the company's interests above her personal advancement. They approved her proposal unanimously, with several members personally commending her professionalism. When she told Zachary about the board's decision, he looked at her with a mixture of pride and awe. "You never cease to amaze me," he said. "Most people would have been fighting for the title in the corner office. You found a solution that works for everyone." She shrugged, smiling. "I don't need a fancy title to know my worth, and this way, I get to focus on the international projects I enjoy most." He pulled her into his arms. "Have I told you lately how much I love you?" "You have," she laughed, "but I never get tired of hearing it." As their wedding day approached, Zara found herself reflecting on the whirlwind journey that had brought them together. From watching him work tirelessly through late nights at the office to standing beside him as his partner in every sense of the word, it was more than she had ever imagined for herself. The night before their wedding, as tradition dictated they spend apart, Zara sat on the balcony of her suite at the Valenti estate, gazing out at the moonlit gardens where they would exchange vows the next day. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Opening it, she found Camilla holding a small package. "From my brother," Camilla explained, handing it to her. "He made me promise to deliver it personally." After Camilla left, Zara carefully opened the package to find a leather-bound journal similar to the one Zachary had given her months ago when they first began dating. A note was attached. "Zara, tomorrow we begin our life together officially, though in my heart, you've been my partner since that night you stayed late to help me with a struggling project. I've watched you grow from a quietly brilliant assistant into a confident woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to claim her place in the world. Your quiet bravery inspires me daily. This journal is for our next chapter, the observations, insights, and moments we'll share as husband and wife. I can't wait to fill it with you. All my love. Z." Tears welled in Zara's eyes as she held the journal to her chest. From her balcony, she could see light still shining from Zachary's study in the east wing of the estate. Even the night before his wedding, he was working some habits never changed. But now, instead of worrying about his workaholic tendencies, she smiled at the familiar sight, knowing that tomorrow and all the days after, they would balance each other perfectly. The wedding day dawned clear and bright, the September air crisp with early autumn. As Zara prepared with Camilla and her mother, she felt a surprising calm. There were no last-minute jitters, no doubts, just a peaceful certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Walking down the aisle toward Zachary, who looked more handsome than ever in his tailored tuxedo, Zara saw the same certainty reflected in his eyes. They had found in each other not just love, but understanding, respect, and partnership in its truest form. Their vows, written by each of them, spoke of journeys and growth, of seeing and being seen, of working together toward shared dreams while supporting individual passions. "I promise to always see beyond your quiet exterior to the brilliant mind and brave heart within," Zachary vowed, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "To value your insights, to respect your independence, and to love you completely. Every day of our lives together." "I promise to stand beside you through challenges and triumphs," Zara replied, her earlier calm giving way to joyful tears. "To remind you to rest when you work too hard, to believe in you when you doubt yourself, and to love you with all that I am, now and always." As they exchanged rings and sealed their promises with a kiss, Zara knew that their story was just beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, balancing careers and eventually family, navigating the public eye, continuing to grow individually and together. but looking into Zachary's eyes as they were pronounced husband and wife, she felt ready for whatever came next. They had found in each other the perfect complement, his drive balanced by her perspective, her quiet strength enhanced by his unwavering support. At the intimate reception that followed, Zachary surprised everyone by announcing a 6-week honeymoon, an unprecedented break from work for a man known for taking business calls on Christmas Day. "Valenti Enterprises will survive without me for a while," he said when asked about the extended absence. "Some things are more important than quarterly reports." Later, as they danced under the stars in the garden, Zara rested her head against her husband's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Are you really not bringing your laptop on our honeymoon?" she teased. "Not even a phone," he promised. "For 6 weeks, my only job is being your husband." "I'll believe that when I see it," she laughed. "But I appreciate the intention." He twirled her gently, then pulled her close again. "You know, when you first started working for me, I thought you were just exceptionally good at your job. I had no idea you were studying me so carefully." "I wasn't studying you," she protested lightly. "I was just observant." "You saw me," he said simply. "Not the CEO, not the billionaire, but me working too hard, caring too much, needing someone who understood both my drive and my doubts." Zara smiled up at him. "And all this time, I had no idea you were watching me too." "From that first late night when you brought me coffee and saved the Harrison deal," he confirmed, "I was falling for your quiet bravery long before I admitted it to myself." As the music played and stars twinkled above them, Zara thought about the unlikely journey that had brought them together from assistant and CEO to partners in every sense. She had once watched him work tirelessly from the shadows of her desk, never imagining he was noticing her too. Appreciating her quiet strength, falling in love with the woman who saw beyond his success to the man beneath. Now, dancing in his arms as his wife, Zara knew they had both found something rare and precious, a love built on mutual respect and understanding, a partnership of equals despite their different starting points. Together, they would continue to build, to grow, to support each other's dreams while creating new, shared ones. And if sometimes Zachary worked too late, she would still bring him coffee and offer her insights. And if sometimes Zara doubted her place in his world, he would remind her of all the ways she had earned it through her own quiet bravery. For in the end, theirs was a love story written not in grand gestures or fairy tale endings, but in moments of true seeing, of valuing what matters most, of choosing each other again and again and again through all of life's challenges and joys. As the night drew to a close and they prepared to begin their new life together, Zachary whispered in her ear, "Thank you for seeing me." And Zara, her heart full of love and gratitude, whispered back, "Thank you for seeing me too."